Hey, good Wednesday evening to everybody. Welcome back to another edition of COSA-TV here on the Facebook Live platform. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter as well, it is great to have you joining us once again tonight. An exciting time of year when you look at the Ontario Sire Stakes just around the corner and getting ready to start. We'll talk about that. More baby race action coming up this weekend from Woodbine Mohawk Park. We'll have baby races as part of the Thursday session as well on both Friday and Saturday morning. And speaking of that, we'll talk to a couple of conditioners who are going to be quite prominent on the weekend, Dr. Ian Moore and double Hall of Famer Bob McIntosh. That's coming up next on this edition of COSA TV. And back to the program, Greg Blanchard, welcoming you wherever you are watching in tonight around the world online. It's great to have you with us for this edition of COSA TV. And a couple of gentlemen who have been no success in the winner's circle here in Ontario and elsewhere in recent years, Bob McIntosh and Dr. Ian Moore, our special guest tonight. They'll be talking about some of the good older horses and 3-year-olds that they've already had back in action, and of course looking ahead to the future stars, and they'll be unveiling some of their babies once again this weekend here at Woodbine Mohawk Park. Before that, though, a couple of reminders to pass your way. The COSA Fantasy Poll, teaming up this year with Trot Magazine. COSA has put this together, and it was to start before now, but with the COVID-19 situation and the rescheduling of the Ontario Sire Stakes program, they have extended the deadline. You have until June 25th to submit your fantasy stable, and visit Standardbred Canada to submit your entries and play along this year in that fantasy stable. Wonderful top prize, compliments of COSA. It's a night for a group of 25 in the VIP suite at Woodbine Mohawk Park, along with betting vouchers, food, and much more. Total prize value of close to $4,000. And off the top, we talked about the return of the Ontario Sire Stakes, the much anticipated return this year, a little bit later getting started than normal. But yes, the start of the season finally on the horizon, and are the first dates as we get set to debut the series for 2020. It will debut the new Prospect Series Saturday, June 20th at Hanover Raceway. 3-year-old filly pacers square off there. The first grassroots event of the year will be Friday, June 26th at Woodbine Mohawk Park. 3-year-old filly pacers in that event. And the first Gold Series event of the season, Sunday, June 28th at Georgian Downs, just south of Barrie. 3-year-old colt trotters square off on that night. For the complete schedule, visit OntarioSireStakes.com for more information. And just before we get going tonight, before we meet our special guests, here is the poll question. We'll give it to you now, give you lots of time to think about it and submit your answer out the night. As mentioned, Bob McIntosh joining us this evening. He's campaigned many world-class horses in his career, and here are 4 of the great mares that he has campaigned on the training side. We wanted to know, of these 4, which one would you rate as the best? And it's not an easy question. Lady Graceful, Delinquent Account, Electric Slide, and L.A. Delight. Just 4 of the tremendous female pacers conditioned by Bob McIntosh, and we want to know, in your opinion, who the best of the 4 was. We'll give you lots of time to submit your answers throughout the night in our comment section, and we will come back later on and let you know the results. We've got some trivia coming up tonight as well. But time now to meet our special guest joining us, and we've got in the co-host chair tonight joining me, Mark. We touched base with you this past weekend, of course, at Mohawk Park. You were calling the action and helping me host the morning of action there, where we had a busy 14-race schedule. And Ian was prominent last weekend. Bob, not quite ready with his group, but we'll see them this week. Your assessment, Mark, just the group of 2-year-olds that we've seen on the racetrack so far in Ontario.
Well, of course, the numbers are always going to be much bigger the second week compared to the first week, but I still think there were some nice performances last week, despite what was less than ideal conditions. I really don't remember a windy morning like the morning we had there last Friday at Woodbine Mohawk Park. I think for some of those rookies, that probably did a bit of a number on them. So for those that are back in this weekend, looking forward to seeing what they can do. But for the ones that did come through, I think everybody'd have to be real happy with those showings.
And for those who just saw the results and didn't get really an indication of the weather conditions, yeah, we can reiterate how cold and windy it was. And Ian, I'm sure you would second that. You were busy. You had 9 horses out last weekend. Mixed results in terms of how they did, but how were you in terms of being satisfied with the group as a whole?
Well, I was very pleased with them, especially in the way they acted around the paddock. Everybody was perfect. Like, we usually have one that lose their marbles a little bit in there. They've only been in there the one time because of the new training schedule. And I had a look at the shadows in the first turn, which they didn't do when they were in the first time I had them in. But other than that, everything went well. There's a few slow halves in some of the earlier races, and as you said, the wind. I drove a few myself, and around the last turn and down the stretch, any horses that had closed bridles on couldn't hear a thing. But that wind, I'm sure it was brutal, no doubt about it.
Yeah. I think you had 9 in total, and all of them going to be back in action again this weekend?
Yes, all of them plus one more, and then I have 4 more probably in the next couple of 3 weeks as well.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing the ones that you raced last weekend and the new faces as well. Bob McIntosh, I know race fans get excited at this time of year to see what you're going to unveil, your latest brigade of you make a trip down to Mohawk with a truck full. But you weren't there last weekend, and was that by design? And see you back in full force here this weekend.
Yeah, it was by design. I really don't usually show up to the second week. I don't like to rush it. It's a long season, and just trying to teach them some manners.
What have you got for a group this year? How many babies do you have currently in training, and how many would we expect to see?
I think I started off with 17, and most of them will show up in different parts of the season, but I got 6 for this week. Probably have a few more for the second week, and some will develop later too, which sometimes are the best ones.
Obviously, you've got horses for the Ontario program. What other programs do you have horses that you're gearing up for this year?
Well, I only have all my horses are homebreds, all my colts, but I only have one that I bought privately from Walden Hall, and she's a cash hall filly, Chow Baby Hall, and she's eligible to the Kentucky Sire Stakes and the Ohio Sire Stakes. It's a pretty nice filly.
We'll talk more about her tonight. We'll go through some of the horses that we're going to see from your barn this weekend. Ian, as mentioned, you were busy last weekend on the Friday and Saturday with several starters. And then Saturday night, you had your raceway horses out and putting on a show. And Mark, we don't see this too often, do we, on a Saturday night where it's really the best of the best on the circuit out, a guy to go 4 for 4.
No, I was trying to look back at our numbers and statistics to see the last time that a trainer sent out 4 winners, let alone going perfect on a Saturday night. But the first one, and we can touch on it here in a second, Doc, Casimir Richie P., who was your first winner on the evening, a 5-year-old in your barn. Usually we see you with more of the younger horses. Maybe tell us a story about him, because he sure looked real strong on Saturday night.
Well, Casimir Richie P. has been a fantastic horse for us, and he holds a special place in my heart. As you said, usually at the end of the 3-year-old year, we tend to move them on and focus on the younger horses. In the last 10 years, we've only kept a handful of age horses, and that would include horses like Rockin' in Heaven and Century Farrell this year, and then Casimir Richie P. as well. And he's by a sire that was one of my all-time favorites, a horse that I had, Astronomical. And Murray McConnell, when he was alive in Sudbury, Casimir Farm, he always had a bunch of astronomicals every year at the sale in Flamborough, and I always looked at every one of them. And most of them I didn't really care for as an individual, even though they're by a horse that I like. You still got to throw the emotion away when you're looking at yearlings. But he had Casimir Ritchie P at the sale, would have been, 4 years ago now. And but he wasn't in the sale. After I looked at all his ones in the sale, he said, "I'm going to show you this one." And he did. He said he's already sold. Somebody in the U.S. had a half-brother Daylon Frontier to him that had over 100,000. They were supposed to have bought him already. So to shorten up the story a bit, the next day I came back and he said, "Well, they're kind of hedging a little bit." I said, "Good, I got a check in my pocket." So I gave him a check for $6,000. So, and he's just been fantastic. He's a good 2-year-old and a nice 3-year-old, and was better last year, and looks like hopefully things will be even better this year as well.
Well, he was real good there on Saturday night. We do have the replay to take a look at. A sub 150 mile, 149.3. He just missed in his first start of the season. Maybe tell us how things maybe changed for him with the schedule and with the shutdown, because you obviously are wintering down south. But what would have been the ideal time to have him back to the races?
He was ready to go at the 1st of May when we usually are home towards the end of April, and we usually race one of the first Saturdays in May. So, after I qualified him in Florida on the 17th of April, Dale Spence was working for me from PEI. He drove him in his qualifier, and he beat Century Pharaoh actually in the qualifier down there. I kind of shut them down a bit. Then I gave them more time off in the paddock than they had on the racetrack. So, they were getting very sharp. It was sort of hard to start them up and how often you train them and so on and so forth. But the first time out, he was ready to go, but he had trained 2 weeks prior at Classy Lane, a pretty fast mile. And I hadn't done much with him then 2 weeks prior to the first race. And just the way the race went, he sort of got locked in a bit and never really got a shot to race. So, but it did him a lot of good, and he came back strong the second week, obviously. So we're looking forward to this Saturday as well.
There he is, winning with Doug McNair driving 27-2 on the end. When you look at his schedule this year, was he one, and I know it's really up in the air now, you obviously are a guy that likes to go back home to Charlottetown, and if you've got one to maybe look at the race like the Gold Cup and Saucer, would that have been the type of race you'd be looking at with him this year, or do you have bigger aspirations for him?
No, we didn't pay him up too much. We did a few races last year, and he wasn't quite at that level last year. We had arranged to take him home last year, actually, but the place where he's supposed to go was a new barn, and didn't quite have the track ready in time for me. So we ended up not taking him, obviously, but it's still a possibility this year. It's going to be very difficult for the people in Charlottetown to get horses this year. If people can't go and owners can't go and enjoy the island and enjoy all the home week, it's going to be a very different situation. So I'm not sure how that's going to pan out. If at all possible, we will maybe try and get him back to PEI or on PEI. I guess this summer I'll be talking to my partner Michael Goldberg in Toronto, and of course Dale Spence and Mackenzie McGuinness, who looked after him in Florida. They're down there. They're at a training center in Tyne Valley, and that may be a good place for him to go.
Sure. So Ian Moore, Bob McIntosh with us. Ian's got some nice older pacers he's looking forward to this year. Campaigned, of course, in the past Shadow Play and State Treasurer, who raced at the top level. We'll talk about some of their offspring this weekend. And Bob McIntosh, on that note, in I think it was 1990 or 91, you had a trio of older pacers that I don't know if we've ever seen before in the sport. One barn in the same season. J.D. Varnell had a question for us, and we'll ask you that right up front. Just wanted you to reflect on that year when you had Arts Place, Odds Against, and Cam Luck all banging heads at the top of the division that year. What was that like? It had to be a dream season for you.
Well, yes, it was. It was like a dream come true, actually. To end up with those, and you're pretty assured to finish 1, 2, 3 most races. I mean, Arts Place was phenomenal, of course, and Cam Luck was great, and Odds Against was a hell of a horse too. But yeah, I enjoyed that year. I never felt any pressure really. Enjoyed the year, and enjoyed those great. Doesn't happen every day, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's remarkable. You actually took the question I was going to ask with Art's Place that year. I think they wanted to make a statement. His 3-year-old year, he wasn't as dominant as expected. You got him at 4,
Mm-hmm.
and he went undefeated. And late in the year, when you had that undefeated streak on the line, was there a lot of pressure going with that at the time?
Yeah, it started to build at the end. I mean, got the call from George Siegel and Brian Monison to come out to Chicago and in the wintertime, and I met with them, and they wanted me to take Art's Place and race him as a 4-year-old because the 3-year-old had been 3 years had been a little disappointing, but he come back. I gotta say, the only day I really got nervous was the senior jet. I had mixed emotions coming down the stretch of Delaware, but
Yeah.
Art's Place, he had a habit of letting the horse do his throat latch and not letting him by. So, super horse, great horse.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, to have odds against and Cam Luck in the same shed row that year, pretty amazing to say the least. You've been fortunate with the pacing mares as well, Bob. A who's who over the years has gone through your barn. The ones that we talked about in our poll question, others like Remember When, Please Me Please come to mind. And you've got another one in Sunny D. Maybe just talk about her last year facing what was one of the deeper crops we've seen in Ontario in quite some time. Where do you think she ranks in terms of the great 3-year-old fillies you've had?
Oh, she's right up there. I mean, like, LA Delight was a great mare too, but her sister. But Sunny D is like a great big mare, about 17. I think her best race last year was at Flamborough. She went 51-1 and just gutted it out. She's a tremendous mare, and she's come back great this year. First couple starts hasn't got hurt, so I look forward to a good year with her.
And you talk about those first couple starts racing in the Mares Preferred at Woodbine Mohawk Park. It looks like it's shaping up to be a fun summer to watch these mares. If you're a racing fan, there's a lot of talent that's been there on the track. Last season, she was going head-to-head with Bodicea. So much more has really come on. What do you make of this group, and is it as tough as it appears on paper?
Yes, it is. It's an awful snug bunch, and she'll have to be on her best to make some money this year, but we'll see how it plays out. She's big and she's healthy, and she hasn't got a good foundation in her, so the rest of the year we'll see what happens.
She was a force, of course, in the Ontario Tire Stakes last year, but I think her biggest payday of the season came south of the border at Hoosier Park in Indiana, and a race called the USS Indianapolis. Sunny D was victorious on that night. We're going to take a look back at that replay. And on this night, Mark, she obviously was the talk of the tote board. I think sent off at odds of 4-5 and did not disappoint.
No, certainly did not. As we'll get a look at the replay, Tim Tetrick was driving on this occasion. And Bob, I got to ask you, again, a race like this, maybe not one of the more notable Grand Circuit events, but going for 120,000 US. It happens at the start of November. Was this race on your radar, or was this one that, as the season progressed, thought would be a nice spot following up the Sire Stakes and, of course, later on moving past October and the Breeders' Crown being complete?
Oh yeah, it was always on the radar. It just depended how the filly was holding up, and she was big and healthy and good. The incredible thing about that race, though, is that she won that on pure guts because she ended up being tied up after that race, and it's just incredible that she had enough talent to win that race, being tied up. So she's all guts.
All right, well, let's take a look back at that replay. This, again, from last year in Indiana at Hoosier Park from early November. The USS Indianapolis, and Sunny D with one of her biggest wins of the season.
He comes away second. JK American Beauty is out in third. Rockin' Nola forwardly placed tonight. He is fourth. Baby Pace fifth. Pansy's Image of the Inside is sixth. Fully Virgin drops in seventh. Sylph Hanover is eighth. Rose Run Uptown Gal ninth. Lady Capulet trails the field in 10th as they line up past the first quarter mile marker, 28-2. And with the lead, it's Summer Charm. Drumonti out of the pocket with a burst of speed. Sunny D with Tim Tetrick, and Sunny D quickly taking the lead. Sunny D throttles up a length. Summer Charm yielding for the pocket seat behind the 4-5 post-time favorite now. Meantime, JK, American Beauty, remains in third. Rockanola is on the move early to the outside fourth. Pansy's Image flushed and follows the cover fifth. Pace Baby Pace locked and shuffled sixth. Outer Flow seventh, Fully a Virgin. Skibby the Pylons eighth, it's Rose Run Uptown Gal. Then it's Sylph Hanover to the outside and Lady Capulet. Half was 56-3. Sunny D has the lead. Rockanola is inching closer to the outside. First over in a second. Summer Charm locked to the inside to third with JK American Beauty fourth. Reaching three quarters, Sunny D is there first. Rockanola at her wheel in second. 124-2 as they race for home of the USS Indianapolis Memorial. Sunny D, Rockanola to the outside. To the inside, Summer Charm. And here comes a fast closing Fully a Virgin. Moving up between horses Miller with JK American Beauty. But it's Sunny D, JK American Beauty coming on through. JK American Beauty to the outside, Sunny D to the inside. Sunny D hangs on to win in 152.
Look back last year, late in the season for Sunny D. Back well so far. Fifth last week, but race from the back and really had good pace from the end of the mile. You had to be happy with her.
I was happy with both her first and second starts because she got kind of locked in the first start, got loose late, finished strong. Second start, she drew the 8-hole outside again, so we just went to the back and let her finish strong. And she's got a good foundation there now with two good starts, so she's ready to roll.
Well, we're going to talk babies here a little bit later in the show, but Mark, we have to be talking NA Cup, even though it's strange. This is right around the time that, we would have been, I think, posted last week on social media that this is the week that you normally wouldn't be getting a lot of sleep. You'd be in high gear getting ready for the NA Cup, but of course, it's pushed back to later in the season, but nonetheless, we're still excited and we're still watching and tracking the Colts in preparation. And Ian has one that might be on the radar after this past weekend.
I would say so. Tattoo Artist is the horse, of course, we're going to talk about. A 3-year-old colt by He's Watching. And Doc, this performance on Saturday night, I think, I don't want to say it stunned a lot of people because I would have to think, based on the fact that he was last year's Ontario Sire Stakes Super Final champion, had a real strong rookie campaign, that there's certainly some good expectations for him here this year, but the betting public at least wasn't giving him much respect, going off at 17-1. And maybe just take us back to that first start a couple of weeks ago. It looked like he got was a handful sitting there in the 2-hole originally for driver Sylvain Filion, but last week rolls out of there and goes on to win impressively in 150 flat, home in 26-2. Was there any changes made from week 1 to week 2?
No, there's no equipment changes made or anything like that. Just a driver change basically is all it was. And that colt's been trained down really good. He matured very well, and he was such a, I don't know, for lack of a better word, he was such a rat when he was a 2-year-old. He was a very difficult 2-year-old to break and to deal with for the first few months of his lifetime on the racetrack. But he's developed into just a super horse this year. I mean, anybody can jog him. He'll trot your pace. He'll do whatever you want. And when it comes to training time or race time, he's all business, as evidenced by last week. He's trained a couple or 3 times, 26-second last quarters. And it takes very little urging to do that. You just basically release the lines on him and say, go on, giddy up, and away he goes. So I was looking forward to it. He didn't get the option to race the first week, and we're a little disappointed, but we're hopeful for better things. So we're very pleased the way it developed there Saturday night, and Bobby seemed to be a good fit for him. And I opted to race him again this week and then give him a week off before the Sire Stake races start, trying to map out a schedule. It will certainly be different this year with the NA Cup being later in the season. But it's really not that late in the season, because when you think about it, Ordinarily we would have had May and then June. So this year we've got June and July, and then on to the NA Cup in August. So it still should be pretty good, and everybody should be in prime shape. I certainly hope that things change at the border then, because it's going to be difficult for a lot of our American friends and trainers to send horses up here, and no doubt we certainly need them for the NA Cup, for the Gold Cup and Saucer, for whatever big events are up here, including the Sire Stakes as well, I might add. So we're sending Century Pharaoh to Tioga on Sunday, and I have to use some friends down there because coming home to 14-day quarantine is totally impractical right now. So yeah, we're looking for some good things for tattoo artists, and as the weeks go by here in the summer.
Well, we're going to take a look back at that performance from Saturday night, but the one other thing that jumped out to me was just how he was able to blast out of there from the 9-hole. That's early speed, something we saw last year, and again, that just came naturally to him.
Well, yeah, last year, though, he basically had the one burst. So if you used it leaving, you're a little light on the end. This year, he seems to have both. He did when we trained him as well, but he can really spring the gate. And if you watch closely, like he almost runs, gets up into such a high gear and in such a hurry. He's just scrambling for racetracks. So, and he'll do that the last quarter too when you speak to him and let go of the lines. And Bobby did tell me that he had all he could do to hold him to 3/4 and 123 and 1 last week. And Sylvain suggested plugs the week before. I hate putting plugs in them because most of them don't like them, and I don't know. I've just had trouble with them in recent years, but looks like we're going to have to. I had some in him yesterday jogging. He didn't like them putting in, but he didn't mind them once he was on the track.
Well, let's take a look back to that ultra impressive win from this past Saturday night.
Tattoo leading
Artist
it by just over a length.
Getting it done in 150.
Heisman player 4th, up and at it, Highland Beach Lover 5th. The half in 55 and 2, they drive to the final turn, and it's Tattoo Artist scrambling out to a 3-length lead. Back into the pocket spot, second Muscle Mock now. Third outside comes his stablemate Highland Beach Lover. In at the rail 4th is Legion Sealster. 5th inside to Heisman player. Groovy Joe's on cover, but cover that's struggling on the outside. Groovy Joe getting held up in the backfield as they travel to 3/4. McClure still swinging away on Tattoo Artist at 17-1. Drury's in that pocket spot, and right there is Muscle Mock. He's been having trouble since the backstretch, and he's drifting across the racetrack now. 3/4 in 123 and 3, and as they come into the stretch, it's all Tattoo Artist. He's going to bury this field. Tattoo Artist is out now to an 8-length advantage, and there's absolutely no stopping the dock tonight. Tattoo Artist for Moore and McClure just jogs. He won it by 8, and he's home in 150.
So 26 and 2 on the end, and yeah, that's a nice weapon to have, as Mark alluded to, and Ian confirmed that you've got that tactical speed now this year, but you've got that final quarter speed to go with it, and you know, certainly the difference between being in races and picking up big money in some of these races as well. So continued good luck with this guy, Ian, on the road to the Pepsi North America Cup. That's a race Bob has won before. Maybe Bob, relive the thrill of winning that race here in your home province, Canada's richest race, and doing it in a year that was just a mild upset.
Well, yeah, that was a thrill of a lifetime, I have to say. You know, he's a homebred. We bred him, we raised him. I had his dam, and I bought her a sale and raised him, and me and Randy worked out a great trip where we needed to cut some tough fractions for him. But that was a special night. I owned him with my cousin Al, and we've been partners for 40 years. That was probably one of my thrills of my lifetime. They went for, I don't know if there would be another pacing race go for $1.5 million. And then my other horse finished 3rd. So the Dapper Dude, and he was a homebred too. So there was a lot of satisfaction that night. I got to play those replays when I'm in a bad mood or get a little down. It makes me feel good.
Yeah,
there's a lot of times
sure.
in this business you are down.
Yeah, a lot of ups and downs, and people
more downs and ups
over North America going through that. Yeah, I was going to say, especially in the last few months, it's been a difficult time for everybody, and it's just great that we're back racing now and getting back to doing what we love to do. Bob, we want to turn our attention to a trotter, another one from Cash Hall, or sired by Cash Hall, a horse that did great things for you on the racetrack.
Yeah.
Only Take Cash last year, winner of $500,000. Kind of flew under the radar a little bit, year old, but assess last year's campaign and your expectations for that one coming into this year.
Well, this filly's just been phenomenal. Like, you know, she has the will to win. Like, I never seen a horse before like her that wants to win so bad. And she's just all trot. You can't knock her off her feet. She had a phenomenal 2-year-old year, phenomenal 3-year-old year. You know, I think in the British Crown she drew the 10 hole and finished 4th. And she's coming back good. Couple qualifiers. Probably see her race on Monday night. But she's sound. She's ready. So we'll see what happens. Might take a start or two.
And Mark,
one of her best. Yeah.
I was going to say, this is the ultimate homebred.
Yeah, it certainly is. And Bob, you could maybe touch on it there. Your presence in Ohio now, obviously with Cash Hall standing in Ohio, and the presence that he's been able to have. And that obviously goes back to, you know, he was great on the racetrack, but he made his presence known in Ohio on Little Brown Jug Day in a different form in a time trial. Maybe tell us a little bit about how all that came to fruition.
That was pretty unique because Cash Hall was destined to be a great horse, but he had some sickness issues where he almost died, and that took away from him. So, you know, after 3 or 4 starts, he'd kind of tail off because of the health issues. So I decided to give him like 3 weeks off, and I knew he was fantastic on a half. So to get his name back in headlines, I decided to time trial him in Delaware, which they were only not that receptive to, really. But we got it done. And, you know, I trained that horse a week before in 53 and 3 over my farm track, which is a hell of a mile. And John time trialed him. I mean, Mickey Burke was good enough to bring in a free-for-all pacing mare to prompt him, which was very nice of him. He went back to the Meadows and picked her up. They got going, and the Cash left her at the head of the stretch. But afterwards, John said that was like the hair on the back of his neck was sticking up around that last turn because the crowd was going crazy. And yeah, it was like it's like winning a big race to me. I mean, it was fantastic. Thrilled.
One of those special treats for racing fans. Yeah, and that's what I'm going to ask you about. I mean, I think they did. I mean, you go back and watch that video on YouTube, and you can hear the crowd, the roar. 151-1 was the mile time, a world record, and a mile that I'm sure at that time nobody could have imagined, and even now it'd be real hard to see on a half-mile track.
It blew me away. But I thought he might go on 52 in a bit, but when it went 51, why couldn't he went 50 and 4? But the crowd was going crazy, and even John, you know how many big races he's won, he said that was quite a thrill. You hear the crowd going crazy. Hell of a day. I think Ponder won
for sure.
Senior Jug that day too. So it doesn't get much better than that.
Absolutely. And, you know, Cash Hall's done good things in the Stallion Barn. And let's take a look at Only Take Cash last year in the Elegant Image Final. Let's take a look at the replay first of all. We'll throw to that and get some reaction from Bob afterwards. Beautiful trip worked out by driver Trevor Henry on this night, and almost gets the pair into the winner's circle. Here's the call with Kenny Middleton.
Drives her to the front. Coming away down the center, Teddy's Little Angel, split by Cloud9 Fashion, and on the far outside, the Ice Duchess marching out of there too. When Dove's Cry lays off this early speed battle early, back into 5th she goes for Allard. 6th away from the fence is Only Take Cash. Dropped over 7th when Evident Beauty. To the rail from an 8th is HP Titania Runner. Then to the outside, Princess Deo, and last is Bright Eyes M. Quarter 27, 1/5, Cloud9 Fashion to the front, under siege from long shot the Ice Duchess. And the Ice Duchess trots to the front past 3/8. Back into second, Cloud9 fashion. Sisters Promise third, fourth, Teddy's Little Angel. Here outside from fifth comes When Doves Cry. Picking up that live covers Only Take Cash into sixth now. Seventh on the move is Evident Beauty, scooting up the rail. HP Titania Runner, then Princess Deo, trailing is Bright Eyes M. Half and 55 and 3. They're rolling right along here. The Ice Duchess on a 2-length advantage going into the final turn. Second is Cloud9 Fashion. When Doves Cry inching closer, third outside on a steady first over gain. Back into fourth at the rail, Sisters Promise with Golden Cover. Only Take Cash is right there in the hunt from in fourth now, tracking her cover to the head of the stretch. And it's the Ice Duchess about to get her class tested as When Doves Cry is right up alongside. In the pocket spot, third is Cloud9 Fashion. Looks like she'd like some racetrack, and off cover, Only Take Cash. 3/4 in 124 and 1. When Doves Cry. Vulnerable tonight, it looks as though. Here on the outside is Only Take Cash, taking it to her. Could Miller get up with Evident Beauty on the far outside? Here's Evident Beauty rolling on the far outside. Evident Beauty, post 10, no problemo. It's the Elegant Image, final to Evident Beauty at 9-1 as she scores in 153.
Big effort and just picked off in the final strides. But, you know, really the trip worked out well that night, Bob. Trevor Henry, let's talk about him. You use him a lot now on the WEG circuit. We saw the success he's had with Sunny D and this trotter. What do you like about Trevor's driving that you have the confidence to use him in those big races?
Well, you know, there's a lot of good drivers and then there's great drivers, but the difference is the guys that can drive for the big money and not choke. And Trevor's one of those guys who can go for big money and he doesn't rattle them. I mean, I've learned over 40 years, there's a lot of really good drivers, racetrack drivers, maybe top drivers, but you add too many zeros to that person, they get a little choky. But he doesn't, and that's what makes the difference.
Well, we look
Purple
forward
Jesus
to.
was just a little too good for us that night.
There you go. Both 10 and all on that night. Well, Bob McIntosh, what a career it's meant for him. Double Hall of Famer, 100 million plus in purse winnings, third winningest trainer in history in that regard. And that brings us to our first trivia question of the night. We want to know, what was Bob's best year in terms of both wins and earnings? What year did Bob have his best single season in terms of wins and earnings? If you think you know the answer, leave it for us in our comment section, and we will get back and check on those answers a little bit later on the show. Well, let's turn our attention to the babies now. And Ian, we want to talk about a couple that you had wins with this past weekend. You sent out 9 starters. Came very close to sweeping the final 3 races on the Friday morning session. And 2 of those wins came with fillies Lady Arthur and Andra Day. Let's begin with Lady Arthur. Interesting here, this is one of, I think, only 1 or 2 on that entire card by Arthur Blue Chip, and he's only had a handful of foals, but already a winner in a qualifier. Has this filly been a good one for you all the way down?
Yes, she has. She's a homebred, the last of the broodmares, I guess. We got rid of the broodmare now, but Twinbrook Farm raised her, and she's been a fantastic filly right from the get-go. She's developed very nicely body-wise, and she's very rugged filly and very tough filly. Like she came from the farm a handful, and she's continued to be so in many ways. But on the racetrack, those 3 fillies that I raced in the last 3 races, all 3 of them, when they train, they want to get it on when they're leaving, and as soon as somebody pulls, they want to all get it on again. And it's getting almost impossible to train them together now because they're all so grabby and want to go so much. But I'm very pleased with Lady Arthur. Serge Savard and Ron McClellan and I own her, and she's unfortunately Ohio bred, and maybe not unfortunately, but we're going to have to send her to Ohio at some point, hopefully, and we'll try her again this week. I have the driver on her this week, and we'll see how things go.
I was just going to, Mark, maybe you were going to chime in there, but I just wanted to ask Ian about Arthur Blue Chip, son of Shadow Play. beautiful individual. He certainly showed tons of ability in his racing career, but it was a career that I believe was cut short perhaps by injury. Is that correct?
Yeah, he was a very bad luck horse. Arthur Blue Chip was probably the best horse I ever had that never got a chance to reach his potential with me. All because of multiple things that happened to him over the years. And he was probably the best shot I ever had at winning the Metro. He was the favorite going into the Metro, won his elimination, and everybody was sick that week. He was not sick. Thursday trained him. He coughed once before the Metro, and I scoped him. He was full of mucus, so I ended up scratching him. But he was just a tough luck individual, super strong, beautiful, big horse, and he certainly passed on those characteristics to this filly. I have a colt by him who's very similar. He's going to be one of my later ones right now, but so I do have two of them, a colt and a filly. And the filly has a lot of body characteristics like he did, just very, studdish and masculine looking for a filly, I guess. She has a wicked long stride. I think she wears about a 58-inch, 59-inch hobble right now and fills every bit of it.
And for Lady Arthur there on last Friday morning when she won her qualifier, you mentioned that you drove. You've got Bob McClure listed to drive this week, but when you're sitting behind them in a baby race, what is the strategy from your point of view? Are you just out there to teach them, or are you still looking for the same thing you'd expect if a catch driver was sitting behind them?
No, I'm looking to teach them all about going behind the gate with other horses and under simulated race conditions. And I have, time in mind how fast I want to go. I carry a watch with me, so I make sure I go to that time. And I also want to make sure they're equipped properly, because sometimes training them down together on training sessions, you can equip them one way and you go to racing behind the gate and they're totally different, or they need minor changes. So once I'm sure that I've got all those things in order, then I'll pass them on to a driver and go from there.
28-4 last quarter in that qualifier to win. I think we got the video teed up, as you mentioned there, Greg. How good was that last quarter, considering the conditions? Because we didn't see too many snappy last quarters like you normally would at the baby races.
Well, I thought it was pretty good. The wind was very strong at that point. They only went a half from 102 in that race, and I was trying my hardest to keep her in the hole. I actually did pop out into James McDonald's way there up the backstretch, briefly. But I did get her back in, and I was able to hold on to her for another eighth of a mile. She's not really one that I wanted to front run, and so it worked out pretty well for her. And once she started pacing away there, she just basically did it all on her own.
All right, well, let's have a look at that replay I believe we have from the baby races last weekend. And you're sitting in the 2-hole now, correct? Yes, and I think you get a bit of a shuffle to third, and then back out in the third quarter with that move. Again, let's talk weather conditions there. Mark, when you're looking at it, looks beautiful, but it was a really, really chilly and windy day, and kind of a headwind, Ian, in the home stretch.
There was a headwind all around the last turn. Well, I guess it was a crosswind in the last turn. That's aviation talk. And then it became a headwind in the stretch for sure. And I had pull-out earplugs on her, and I pulled them, I guess, somewhere once I cleared the lead here. I pulled them just so she could hear something. She's all closed up with a closed bridle and a hook shadow all on her. She's got a nice stride and very, very willing to go, that's for sure. She's a nice filly, and I'm looking forward and optimistic for her this summer.
So getting a look at just the final closing strides of this one, and she's widening at the end, and as you said, doing it willingly. You're not really asking her for anything more than you need right there. So well in hand at the end, and one of the impressive winners that day. Again, with Arthur Blue Chip, just a very limited number of foals already, a qualifying win under his belt, and a filly that looks like she certainly has a lot of potential. We talked about Arthur Blue Chip and being a tough luck individual. I'll just switch over to Bob for a second on that same note. Western Shooter, and we had a question. I know Sugar Doyle wanted me to ask you this, our track announcer here in London. He loved Western Shooter, and watching him as a youngster, he thought he was one of the most electrifying young horses he had seen at that time. Wanted to get your thoughts on him now, all these years later. How good was he? Where did he rank in great horses you had?
I'd say Western Shooter is one of the best horses I ever drew a line over. I mean, he was just phenomenal. He could pace 26 second quarters looking at a bird across the field. Just incredible, the things he did. And it was really a tragedy that he died in the winter of his 3-year-old year, and because I think he would have been a real force as a 3-year-old and a real force in the breeding shed. That was a tough one for me. I don't think I come out of the house for 2 or 3 weeks. He was great, and just if he had been an everyday horse, I probably never would have sent him to Ohio State. Little lump on his neck. They give him a bunch of antibiotics, killed the good bacteria in his gut, and before you know it, he was gone. Tragic.
Yeah, it really was. And I know as a fan, we were so looking forward to seeing what he was going to go on to do in the rest of his career and in the Stallion Barn, as you mentioned. And I remember that crop too, Mach 3 and horses like that. I mean, that was one of the deepest crops ever, and he was he looked like the best one.
When he won the Governor's Cup, John Campbell, he got away 8th or 9th, I forget what it was, but he come first up the last half, and John said to me in the Winter Circle, he said horses aren't supposed to win with that trip, and that's a lot coming from John.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ian, one youngster that certainly did come back and blossom for you on the racetrack, and he's gone on to be a very good producer as well as Shadow Play, and a daughter of Shadow Play is the next one we want to have a look at. Just tell us about Andra Day. You said she was one that trained in your top group of fillies all season long, and was she kind of a natural from day one?
Yeah, she was. She's a small filly. Eric Cherry owns her, and she's basically homebred as well. Blue Chip Farms raised her for him, and we got her a little bit late, but she broke really good, and she's a very hyper filly. Like she gets quite excitable and has had a couple of episodes of tying up. So we've been very careful with her that way now recently. We've done some management changes with her, and she's gotten a lot better subsequent to a couple of weeks ago. She's got high speed, and like I said, she grabs on and she likes to rock and roll when it's time as well. I didn't really want to go to the front with her, but I had a bunch of 7 holes the other day in the qualifiers, and she was one of them, and she can spring the gate really good. We schooled her a couple of times, and nobody was leaving, and so there really wasn't anywhere else to go for me at that point in time. But hopefully this time we'll be able to race her from behind. She will train from behind. She did today, and we're looking forward to her as well.
And I know we're going to take a look at her qualifier in just a second, but each week when I'm preparing for the baby races, I like to go through the pedigree and take a look at what we're going to get this view on the track. And when you look at the breeding with her, second dam, Hannah Hanover, a Breeders' Crown champion. This is the third foal of an Art Major mare. When they have that sort of pedigree to them, are your expectations raised a little more?
Yes and no. Having a pedigree certainly doesn't guarantee a top yearling or a top racehorse, obviously. Everybody knows that, but it does give you perhaps something more to work with many times. So yeah, I was certainly happy when he called me and asked me to take her. Hopefully we'll have a bit of luck with her, that's for sure.
Well, let's take a look back at that replay. Andra Day, different tact with this filly. You put it right on the front, as mentioned, and simply widen at the end. So let's have a look at the half of this qualifier, and we'll just throw to the race call with Mark from this morning last Friday at Woodbine Mohawk Park.
past the half in 1 minute and 3/5. So she ramped it up there, 29 seconds in the second quarter. They're going into the far turn, and Andrade is on a lead of about 7 or 8 lengths. In second is So Admirable. Racing in third is Sports Check, 5 lengths going back then to Awesome Hill, who is in fourth. Right behind that one is Ariana Grandeo, followed by Bet You Love Me, who gets underway. And last is Clover. Andrade coming to 3/4. Her lead starting to shrink maybe just a little bit, as So Admirable is about 5 off the top at 3/4 in 1:29 and 1. So turning for home off a 28 and 3 third quarter, this is Andrade. She'll try and close it out. So Admirable is trying to make things interesting. So too is Sports Check. They come to the 8th pole, and although the lead is still 3 lengths, doesn't look like they're going to get much closer. It is Andrade, and Andrade here still with the lead, getting in a little closer. Sports Check. Andrade is the winner of qualifier 13. She wins by a length and a half. Sports Check was second. Third went to So Admirable. Then it was Awesome Hill, followed by Ariana Grandeo, Bet You Love Me, and Clover. 1:59 flat.
So 59 the win time, and good final quarter speed as well, considering the weather conditions on the morning. So having said that, Ian, when you look ahead to this weekend with all of your horses, what are you looking for in terms of progression? Do you have a time benchmark in mind, or you just want to see their performance elevated somewhat?
All of the above, I guess. As Bob mentioned, he doesn't usually show up till the second qualifier, and that's typical for me as well. But in years gone past, the first qualifier would have been the week before last down here. So this essentially was the time of the second qualifier, and I like to go twice with my babies, and I use them as my last couple of training miles. I don't do anything with them in between other than jog them up, and so basically, when we qualify the Friday, Saturday this week, that'll be their training day / qualifying day as well. So we're looking for some better times, and then we'll know where to place them, whether they're going to be grassroots or gold or the new prospect series, I guess, as well now is another option.
Well, let's go to our second trivia question of the night. And again, we've got Bob McIntosh and Dr. Ian Moore, our special guest, Mark McKelvey, joining me tonight as well, and it's wonderful to have all of you on board. Here is trivia question number 2. Moore trainee Shadow Play and State Treasurer have both won which high-profile race on Hambletonian Day at the Meadowlands? And if you watched one of our recent episodes of the show, you should be able to come up with this one. Wanted to know which race on Hambletonian Day that both Shadow Play and State Treasurer have won for Doc Moore. And if you think you know the answer, leave it for us in our comment section. We will take a quick break, and we'll be back with more on this edition of COSA-TV. And welcome back to our show. Again, Greg Blanchard, along with McIntosh, Dr. Ian Moore, and Mark McKelvey. Thank you for joining us here tonight. We've been talking youngsters in the last segment, fillies in particular, a pair that Ian sent out last weekend at qualifiers. We will see them back in action this week. And our chance to let you know that we'll be covering the action again here on COSA-TV. We're looking forward to that once again this weekend as well. And we hope you can tune in on the various platforms, including our YouTube page and Facebook Live. But speaking of great fillies, Bob McIntosh, let's go back to the early 1990s, and one that I'm sure you remember very fondly, an on-the-road again filly named Delinquent Account. A millionaire back in the time where $1 million, it still is a lot of money, but it was a very impressive milestone to reach back then. And she was a Breeders' Crown champion, just one of the many accolades that she garnered in her career. What kind of a place does she hold for you when you look back in your career?
Lincoln account was the toughest, best mares I ever raced. I mean, she was a brute, great big filly, big mare. I'd say about 17 hands. And you didn't have to be second over with her like Billy O drove her most of the time, and you could come first over, and she just loved it. She'd stare at them in the eye and go on by. I mean, and as a brood mare, she speaks for herself. I think she's in the Hall of Fame as a brood mare too. One of my top mares I ever raced in my life.
And that's certainly saying something. And we wanted to look back at her victory in the 1991 Breeders' Crown, because that's going to lead us to one of the youngsters that we're going to talk about this weekend as well, and her broodmare record. But let's go back to 91 in the Breeders' Crown. Bob just talked about it a moment ago, how gritty this mare was, how she did not need an easy trip to win. And no better example of that than this 1991 Breeders' Crown victory for the great Delinquent Account. Let's take a look.
Often pacing fast out of the gate, the one Town Pro down along the rail, the two LD's Trish passed on the outside, the 7 Candy Superstar, 3 wide into the rail, the 3 Delinquent Account gets away, 4th racing 5th Cheery Hello, 6th at the rail Ms. Magic, trailing the field Caesar's Jackpot as they race around the turn, going to the first quarter mark. Town Pro and Doug Brown take the field to the quarter, the fastest ever for mare pacers in the Breeders' Crown, 27 2/5. He entered the lane, passing it down to the first time. Town Pro leads the way. LD's Trish racing second. Candy Superstar third. Out and moving on the outside. Delinquent Account with a tough first over. Racing up on the outside. Cheery Hello now fifth with cover. Ms. Magic at the rail, sixth to the outside. Caesar's Jackpot can see them all. Past the half. 56 seconds. Racing to the backside at the 5/8 mark. It's Town Pro showing the way by a length and 3/4. LD's Trish is second. Candy Superstar third. Delinquent Account fourth on the outside. Cheery Hello fifth. Caesar's Jackpot sixth. Running the field, Ms. Magic, but they're not making up any ground on the leader. Town Pro at the 3/4. Here comes LD's Trish. 3/4. 1:24. Fastest 3/4 in the history of the Breeders' Crown pace. Around the final turn, LD's Trish on the outside. Town Pro gives way at the rail. Delinquent Account closing on the outside. Down the stretch they come. LD's Trish. Delinquent Account closing on the outside. It's Delinquent Account on the outside. Giddy up. 1:54 2. Second to the wire, LD's Trish. Closing for third, Caesar's Jackpot.
A lot of fun to look back at that one. Early days of the Breeders' Crown, an incredible group of older mares back at that time, and Delinquent Account comes out on top. And, like her father, on the road again, he was known for his durability. He could be used 2 and 3 times in a race and still kept coming at the end. And she showed that. She showed that will to get there, Bob, and that desire to get to the wire first. Obviously, one of her best attributes.
She was a gorilla. I mean, she just was so tough. Billy loved her. That was a Billy O drive there. He got her across the wire. I mean, he's not called the Magic Man for nothing. Great drive and a great mare. Fun night. I think actually Cam Luck won the Breeders' Crown the same night, so we were riding pretty high that night.
For sure. And a track record at the time. I look at her coming back on that night, way back in 1991. So we fast forward ahead to one that we're going to see out this weekend for you by the name of Counter Offer. And we'll get a look at a graphic on this one, Mark. This one, a son of Shadow Play from All Accounted For. And that makes this one a great-grandson of Delinquent Account, who we just saw there. So some great pedigree potential for this guy.
Yeah, certainly is. Of course, the Dama sister to Strike and Attitude, who was a winner of $1 million. Bob, I got to ask you, when you are working with these horses and you've worked with going back multiple generations, are you always looking to compare how they were coming along compared to the other ones that you've trained from the same family? Or do you try to go in with a bit of an open mind with each?
Well, the particular mare I'll account for hadn't had a lot of success in her foals, but this colt come in out of the field last year, and I thought he was pretty ordinary. Really, I didn't really think much of him. But as time has progressed, he's a nice colt. We'll find out more about him this week, but he's a pretty nice colt. And as John Campbell always tells me about these babies, you'll find out who they are when the first time they get tired, whether they fight or they flight.
Yeah.
But he's a nice colt. Yeah.
And Bob, when we look back there, way back to '91, you said, one of your great nights in the sport that year in the Breeders' Crown, and here we are in 2020, and you're still right top level. Have your training methods? Would you say they've changed much in that time? And if so, how would you say you've changed?
Well, they've not changed a great deal, but they've been modified a bit. I think the standardbred breed has really changed. We've got more like thoroughbreds, and I'd say, if anything, I train them a little lighter and a few less trips. Tell the truth, when I'm prepping a horse for a race, I tend to train them more of a fast half and a fast mile, more like the thoroughbreds. But you do it every day, and you're never too old to learn something, and I'm still learning every day of myself at my age.
Sure, good way to look at it. Ian, I'll maybe pose the same question to you. What's Ian Moore, the trainer, like now versus Ian Moore, the trainer from, say, back in that time?
The credit. I'm wrong, but he's training all these babies on his own farm half-mile track now that Windsor Raceway's not there anymore. It's a long truck from him to Mohawk, obviously, so he's producing a lot of champions on a half-mile track, which is what I used to do many years ago, and now I got to be a class of name with a fantastic 7/8 or Mohawk. I don't want to train anywhere else anymore. But yeah, I think the breed has changed a lot in the last decade, 20 years as well. I said to somebody the other day, like, it wasn't that long ago, we trained babies in 218, and we're looking for a bike so we could go in 15. And now we're training them in 2.8, 2:10 in the jog cart, and then we go to a bike, and they used to drop 5 seconds in a bike. Now they're dropping, 8-10 seconds in a bike under strong holds. So the breed has gotten better. The harnesses are better. The tracks are better. Bikes, everything, and of course the way the young people drive nowadays is a lot different than my driving days as well. But so yeah, I still like to get a good foundation on all of my babies. They get lots of jog miles, and they get all kinds of miles in the 35 to 45 range. Again, 20 years ago we used to start babies in 55 3 minutes, and now the first time you turn them, you're going to go in 240 with them, or close to it with almost all of them, and they do it with ease compared to what they did 20 years ago.
And Bob, you mentioned a few moments ago about the fact that when they go and qualify the first time, that's when you find out just what they are, when they do have to face that adversity, when they do get tired. How often, and how often, I'm saying each year when you come along with your new crop, how often does one maybe fool you that you think this one looks like it's got real potential, and then they get out there for the baby races and it's just not there?
That's the name of the game, because I've had some great horses that train great at the farm, and they're eager trainers. Then they get in there, and then you got one that's maybe a third liner, like on the third line of a hockey team, and he comes in, he'll surprise you, a little bit of a lazy horse. So every year you get fooled. I mean, it never changes. Anybody tells you they got a great colt and they know it is lying to you, because you don't know till you get out there and face adversity. And I really don't care about winning baby races. I just want them to finish with a tight line and learn something. You don't want to get a colt, never want to get a filly or a colt tired at the wire, as long as you can help it. because you can discourage them in a hurry if you ever get them tired. And that's where Trevor Henry does a great job for me. We may not win a lot of baby races, but he finishes with a tight hold on them. And if they're any good, they'll move on. If they're no good, nothing you can do.
Ian, let's talk about Alumni Steelster next. So again, we said earlier, you came very close to sweeping the final 3 races last Friday morning. And in the finale, you were close second with Alumni Steelster. This one by State Treasurer, the horse with 2 campaigns to a double millionaire career. First of all, any similarities between Alumni Steelster and the father, State Treasurer?
Yes, for Philly, she's got tremendous desire. And I think I mentioned this last time I was on, but I feel very fortunate that I'm able to train and potentially race offspring from stallions that I had raced previously, including this year where I have some shadow plays, and a couple Arthur Blue Chips, and some State Treasures as well. So it's a lot of fun. And some of them, you know, they look just like the sire and they pace like him and whatever. And then other ones are totally different. This filly, I guess she's actually a big filly for a 2-year-old. State Treasure was a very small, immature 2-year-old when he was a young horse. And her gait is not really anything like him at all. It's a nice gait, a nice long gait. She has a big long hobble. But she certainly does have the will and desire that he has to compete when she's training, or as she was behind the gate last week.
Well, let's take a look
qualifier
back
last week. Yeah. Go ahead, Greg. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there,
No.
but I was thinking back to last week when we were doing our COSA-TV show. This was probably the most entertaining qualifier for a fan. Obviously, it's all a learning experience for these babies, but this was a real good finish. Is this, and I know we're going to look at the replay in a second, is this the kind of qualifier that's going to teach a horse a lot about finding that toughness?
Yeah, I think it is. Again, she wears a closed bridle, and so they're not seeing a whole lot finishing these babies, and with that win, they couldn't hear a whole lot. And, you know, I don't force them. I like to finish with a snug line on them as well, as Bob talked about. So she did have the lead early in the stretch there, and then sort of relinquished it at the end, but the one that went by her on the inside, I believe she was asked a little bit at the end there, where I was not really asking too much and still sitting there with a tight line. So that's fine, and I'm very pleased with that. And we'll look forward to the first baby race for fillies, the first 2-year-old OSS race for fillies, which I believe is coming up in July the 7th.
All right, let's take a look back at that replay. It was the 14th and final qualifying race from this past Friday morning at Woodbine Mohawk Park. And again, here's Mark with the description. And as he said, ended up being one of the most entertaining tilts of the morning.
In the second quarter, and in control of this group is a better game. It's a better game, and James McDonald showing the way into the far turn. Now with a rush, here comes Alumni Sealster, another one on the move for Moore, and looking to sweep up to take the lead before 3 quarters. Now third is Game of Shadows, 3 lengths going back to Sunshine Nelly in fourth, 2-length break then to Carwin's Lucky Luna. Final 3, it is Chief's Dream Girl, Marry Me Now Hanover, and Sunshine in May. And on even terms, it's a better game, and Alumni Sealster at 3 quarters in 131 flat. So they turn for home, and on the outside, Alumni Sealster is trying to power on by a better game who looks to find more. At the inside, a better game outside Alumni Sealster, getting a little steppy is Sunshine Nelly in third, and now goes off stride. So it's down to these two, 16th to go. A better game at the inside continues to battle tough, but Alumni Sealster's got a head up in front. They're coming to the line, and coming back at the inside to get it was a better game. Alumni Sealster was second, Game of Shadows third, then it was Chief's Dream Girl, Carwin's Lucky Luna, Sunshine Nelly, followed by Marry Me Now Hanover, and Sunshine in May. 159 and 3. A better game battles back.
So yeah, there's I guess the fact that the filly got beat or picked off at the end, but as you said, she didn't really look tired, and she was pacing right with the other filly at the wire. So certainly the body language was positive when you look ahead to this weekend and look ahead to the start of the OSS season with her. Before we go to our third and final trivia question, Ian, want to get a quick thought about Marlborough Sealster. He was in action, a highly anticipated debut last weekend as well. He's the record-setting yearling from last year, $270,000 at the London Selected Yearling Sale. Fifth in his qualifier, satisfied, room for improvement. What were your thoughts?
Well, there's certainly room for improvement. 202 is not going to get us much in the hunt for anything. He has trained, 3 seconds faster than that. I guess we've trained him in 59. He's a very nice colt. He's a nice gated colt. I've had a few Bettor's Delights, and the colts, he sort of is similar to many of those. He's a bit on the lazy side, I guess. He's got a good attitude. There's nothing wrong with his attitude, but he is lazy. And you need to get him up in the rigging, and you need to get him rolling and put him on somebody's helmet, and he'll follow all day. I think he'll be much better this time out, and we'll see how things go with him. I mean, he's one of those ones that, that Bob just spoke about, that maybe is not in your top set as you train down in the spring, but then some in your top set tend to fall off, and maybe one like him, who's never really hurt himself training down, is ready to roll on now and pop up and join your top set in a hurry.
Well, it's always fun to watch the progression from week 1 of the baby races to week 2, and we will do that with anticipation this week. And another factor is going to be weather. Mark, the forecast says much warmer, not nearly the winds. So I would expect we'll see substantial jumps in time for some of the horses, especially the ones that are coming back for a second time. We've got more 2-year-olds to talk about, but another trivia question to pass your way before that. Trivia question number 3. We want to know if you can name the last horse to win an OSS Gold Series leg and the Breeders' Crown in the same season. The last horse to win a leg of the OSS Gold and the Breeders' Crown all in the same season. If you think you know the answer, pass it along. And we'll recap those questions and answers, of course, at the end of the show. We talked about Ian's Bettor's Delight colt Marlborough Sealster. Bob's had some luck with offspring of Bettor's Delight. Another great filly that you campaigned, L.A. Delight. We're going to have a look at her and talk about her, Bob, as we set the stage for looking at one of her grandsons, I believe a grandson, that we're going to talk about racing this weekend. L.A. Delight, first of all, just a thought on her. Again, I know these are tough questions to answer when you've had so many good ones, trying to sort of rate them, but L.A. Delight, I mean, right up there with the very best of her generation.
Yeah, I mean, she was an outstanding filly at 2 and 3, and she just had a tremendous gait, and the biggest thing was she had the will to win, which you can't train that until they're born with it. And she wanted to win, and she had the gait to carry her speed. Like, can't say anything bad about her. She's just a perfect filly. It was hard to screw her up.
And Mark, you would remember her fondly. Many epic battles at especially Mohawk and Woodbine racetracks over her career.
Yeah, there certainly was. I think, though, the race that stands out to me, and I'd love to ask Bob about it, was winning the Jugette with her at the Delaware County Fairgrounds. Funny, we go back to Ohio once again, but again, that afternoon, it was a situation where no longer in the Jugette was there necessary to be a race-off, so it was the eliminations and then the final, and she comes through to win. Take us back to that afternoon.
Well, very special. It's always special on Jug Day, or Jugette Day, and she was great the first heat. John just said, well, maybe let her take her hobbles up an inch, because she's a little steppy at the end. Took her hobbles up an inch, and John and her did the rest. I mean, it's just fantastic filly and a big throw. My owners were there, CSX, and they're big supporters of the Delaware Fairgrounds, and what can I say? It was a Jugette, and it was very special.
And great for Ontario racing, or an Ontario-sired filly, to win an event like that, and of course then comes back to the home province and continues to take care of business the way that she did. I know we're going to get a look at her super final victory from that season, but when you're racing one in the Ontario Sire Stakes and you're going into the season with the Sire Stakes in mind, if it's a Grand Circuit type horse, how focused are you on making sure that you're going to be able to work out the perfect schedule, or is it more on the fly as the year goes? You're trying to pick your spots.
Pretty much on the fly. The horse dictates to you what your plan should be. And she was handling everything extremely easy as a 2 and 3-year-old. So she made my job very, very easy because she was a force in the Sire Stakes, and I thought she'd go Grand Circuit. And I believe that year as a 3-year-old, she only lost the Breeders' Crown by a nose or whatever in Meadowlands. So just a tremendous filly. Because great thing for Ontario breds. She was a homebred too, and just one of those special fillies.
Career winner of close to $1.8 million and one of her biggest paydays in Ontario coming up here, as mentioned. We're going to show her victory in the 2016 Ontario Sire Stakes Super Final for a purse of $250,000 that night. And Kenny with the description.
Here they come. They're off and pacing, blasting out of there from the outside. The tandem of Mayhem Sealster and Diva's Image. Forwardly placed early's LA Delight down the center, and at the rail, Party in Rome. Up and behind them to race away fourth, Bad as leader. Bourbon Sealster crossing over from in fifth. Diva's Image sixth outside. Racing up into seventh goes Cracklin' Rosie. Further back towards the rail from an eighth now. Travels up Bring Me Diamonds. The final two in the field are Lady Lay and Goodwill Hanover. They're by the quarter in 26 and 2. LA Delight, the favorite, made the lead. Here's Mayhem Sealster to apply pressure, and Waples will release Filion as Mayhem Sealster scoots to the front. LA Delight's in the pocket spot for the time being. Her body language says Waples is right back around for a retake move. Here comes a pumped up LA Delight out of the pocket spot, and she'll engage in battle with Mayhem Sealster one more time. Here comes LA Delight slipping back to the front end. Mayhem Sealster second. Traveling third is Party in Rome. Off the rail fourth. Bourbon Sealster's on the move. 54 and 2. A 28-second second quarter onto the far turn. LA Delight on top, a length and a half with Mayhem Sealster second. Back in third is Party in Rome. It's Bourbon Sealster stalling fourth outside with 3 hits to go. Locked up inside, Bad as leader fifth. 3 wide up off cover. Diva's Image now fires. Also 3 wide from the backfield comes Cracklin' Rosie. Then it's back to Bring Me Diamonds. Lady Land, Goodwill Hanover. On to 3/4. LA Delight is still there. She's a length and a half in front. Waples pops the plugs at 3/4 in 1:23, a 28 and 3/3. LA Delight still there. She's 2 lengths in front now. Back in second, Mayhem Sealster fully extended. Off the rail comes Party in Rome with late pace. Bad as leader joins the fray on the far outside. She's coming on. Here's an upset-minded Bad as leader. Bad as leader on the outside. Bad as leader closing after LA Delight. LA Delight would not be denied. She dug in when it counted. 150 and 3 for LA Delight.
So 1-9 on this particular night on the strength of how much success she had that season on the Grand Circuit. But, you know, a lot of big miles, a lot of traveling back and forth. And to be racing in mid-October at Mohawk, I think a testament to how tough the OSS program is, because even at 1-9, it wasn't a gimme. She really had to work and show what she was made of this night and to hold on for the victory like the champion she is. So that brings us to a youngster that we're going to get a look at this weekend, Bob, at Mohawk by the name of Best Head West. The mare, the dam of this one, is a sister to LA Delight, which is why we showed her, and her name is Let's Head Out West. What can you tell us about her, Bob? She only had one start in her career, obviously, and an injury cut her racing career short.
Yes, I don't. I'm trying to recall what the injury was even, but she wasn't a force on the racetrack. But I think she's going to be a good broodmare. This she's had a couple, but this filly she's got this year seems like a good filly. I staked her up pretty good. Time will tell, but but she's a pretty classy filly. We'll see what happens, but she's trained well over the farm track, and she's got good manners, does everything right, great gait. So time will tell. But I like her a lot.
I just wanted to correct a granddaughter, I should say, of the sister
Yeah,
to L.A. Delight. So
it's a
definitely pedigree
great
potential.
family.
Yeah, I was going to say, Bob, you know, you've been doing it a long time and you've had tremendous success when you're now campaigning great granddaughters of past champions you've had. So you've really developed you know, an amazing breeding program as well at your farm and in your base at Windsor. Maybe just get your thoughts on you know, the history of Windsor Raceway and what that meant to your career. And you've always remained in that area. You've kept that as your home base, and you know, it was a great racetrack, one of the greatest certainly in Canada, and one of the greatest in North America in its heyday.
Well, Windsor Raceway, tell the truth, today I can't even drive by it because there's not much of it left. It breaks my heart. That's where I got my start. That's where everything got started, and it was there's so many great memories there. It's unbelievable. It's where I cut my teeth. I mean, I started with a 4,000 or 5,000 claimer there, and a bunch of other claimers, and everything else just kind of fell into place. And it's a tragedy that that track is closed. I blame the government and the owner at the time of Windsor Raceway. It was the second highest betting per capita in Canada, only second to Mohawk and the WEG. And why it's closed and why it's not open now is beyond me. I mean, it's we got a great location down here, and but Windsor will always be close to my heart. And there's so many good memories there. I'll never forget it. But I just chose to stay in Windsor. I got family here. I've got a nice house. I've got a farm with a great half-mile track, which I think is a plus to train colts on, really, because they learn how to go around the turns. And I put a lot of money in the track. It's a fast track. And also, you're only as good as your help. And a lot of my people have been with me, Christ, for 30 years, 35 years, 25 years. I mean, you move around and you lose all your help. And if it wasn't for the, you know, it's true, you're only as good as your help, because I can only do so much. But I got a great group. They've been with me forever. They know the way I want things done. I've got my own cousin that supplies my feed down here and local hay and straw, and probably would have had a lot more horses to train if I had went down to Toronto way. But I'm not a pup anymore, and I feel at home here, and this is going to be it.
And your staff certainly has to be dedicated. You know, your staff would put a lot of miles on in the run of a year, even just running back and forth to Mohawk. How many miles, you know, would you estimate you put on your vehicles in the run of a season?
Oh my God, I keep wearing out a pickup truck every 2 years, it seems like. But no, the staff's been great, because it's not easy when you got to ship that far, but they get well paid, and you know, they're just dedicated bunch. They like working here. Nobody grooms horses for the money, that's for sure. They just love what they do. And I really appreciate their dedication. And like I say, it can't be understated. If I was bebopping around to Florida and back and all over the place, and I wouldn't be able to keep my same staff. And that's half the reason I go to work, because I got a great staff. So it's I can't say enough about that. I mean, there's cons to being here in Windsor and not down near Toronto, but you know, maybe it was 25, 30 years ago I would have moved to Toronto, but not now.
All right, and you know, well, we've got a few moments left here for our viewers. Maybe get you to chime in. Tell us who your favorite Bob McIntosh horse of all time is, and maybe your favorite Ian Moore trained pupil of all time. I'll weigh in for Bob. I would say certainly Art's Place and Western Shooter, kind of a dead heat there for me. And then with Ian, Shadow Play, and you know, State Treasurer not far behind. But I was a huge Shadow Play fan. Mark, what about you?
That's a real good question. I was a big fan of Shadow Play as well. State Treasurer, though, I think seeing his victory happened at the Molson Pace at the time. And I'm sure you could talk about that, Doc, but just how tough he was. But I remember watching him win there. That was a pretty great moment, being there live, just seeing how tough horse he was. And for Bob, I was always I guess most recently, it's funny, we talked about Only Take Cash, and I always kind of bring together, and I don't know if this would maybe be my favorite one of yours there, Bob, but I always think back to when you're watching those young horses, and I like to track them. And I remember seeing her early on in her career, and I want to say maybe it was her first start, at least her first start in Ohio. I think Ronnie Wren was driving her. Maybe things didn't exactly go completely as planned, but she showed something that I thought, wow, this is a real special filly, and made sure to track her from there on out.
Yeah, that was the first start in Northfield, Ohio, and he drove her careful, which I wanted him to. And I can't remember what position we had. It was a half-mile track, and she just missed by a nose. She closed like a freight train. And after that race, Marv Chandler bought CSX's half out after that race, and turned out to be a great deal for Marv, that's for sure. But she was just special filly. Yeah.
Bob, Mark touched on State Treasurer winning the Molson Pace. In fact, he won it 3 times, three straight years. Only 2 horses to ever do that. And of course, one year made a break at the start, came all the way back to win. But then it was renamed just a couple of years ago to the Camluck Classic. Just a thought on that. What did that mean to you to have a race of that stature named after the great horse you campaigned, and obviously went on to be the greatest pacing stallion in Canadian history?
Well, when I heard the news, it meant a lot to me. I mean, he's a great horse, and see him, he was a great racehorse and a super stallion, is what I put it. Like, he made $1 million as a racehorse, but when he got to the stud barn, that was where he made his fame. And I give a lot of credit to Sealster Farms for doing a great job with him. And I mean, just to have that race named after him means he'll live on in people's memory. So it meant a lot to me. And my cousin Al, too.
Yeah, for sure. Ian, let's get you to chime in on that Molson three-peat. We didn't really get to touch on it as much the last time you were on, but that's a remarkable achievement this day and age, to win a race of that stature 3 straight years, to come back and have them that good each and every year, and win it in 3 different ways.
Yeah, it was very exciting for us, that's for sure. 3 years in a row. We were actually looking forward to it again when he made the break that year, and oh boy, this didn't look good. But it ended up good. He was trained as a baby on a half-mile track in Charlottetown. My good friend Kenny Arsenault did his early training down there, and I believe I was stable at the half-mile track in Rockwood at the time when we got him as a baby as well. So he could pace a half-mile track, pretty well as fast as he could the big track at the time. And he could come from behind, he could go to the front, could do it anyway, really. And he just, as we've already alluded to, he had a tremendous will and desire to win and be competitive every time out, all business on the racetrack. And London was one of those tracks that seemed to suit him. I had a horse in 1979 called Saunders Glory, who raced 6 times at London in his career, in 79 and 1980, and he won all 6 of those. He loved that track as well. So it's the type of track that some horses can do and others can't, and State Treasure certainly enjoyed it, and so did we. It's kind of a shame that they're not going to race this year, actually. I'm a little disappointed in that, and I'm not going to have that race this year, and I understand why, but it is a shame, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and we'll talk maybe a little bit more about a couple of other horses from your barn before we wrap up. Just 2 more we want to touch on previewing this weekend that we'll see from Bob's stable. Chow Baby Hall on the trot. We'll bring up a graphic about this one. Bob mentioned him earlier on the night. The only one that you said you purchased from the fall sale, the son of Cash Hall, for $45,000. And obviously the reason, again, Bob, that you wanted to dive in on this one.
Well, actually, she was Alan Levitt bought her back at $45,000 on the sale. And my cousin Al pointed out that she was in the fall sale at Delaware, Ohio sale. And I looked at her video, and I trained her mother for Walnut Hall, Constance Hall, and I think she made about $250,000, $300,000. Nice filly. Fell in love with the video. I called Alan. We come to an agreement on the price, and I bought her privately off of Alan in Walnut Hall. And she's just one of those fillies that's done everything right from day one. I got high hopes for her, but again, you never know till you get in there. But yeah, she shows talent on the farm track anyway. We'll find out soon enough.
You train the father and the mother, as you said. What similarities, if any, do you see at this point?
She shows a lot of cash haul to me. She's got a big, long neck. She's got a bit of an attitude in the barn like he did. And she's got that quick speed where she can brush with a hobbled pacer. I mean, I'm high on her, but that doesn't mean she's going to be great. She's got to prove that yet. But I wouldn't trade her for. It'd take a pretty good filly for me to trade her for. I might be wrong, but we'll see.
Well, hoping she will be the next big thing, and that's exactly the name of the final one that we want to look at from your stable that you plan to be bringing down to Woodbine Mohawk Park this weekend. Yeah. This one by Shadow Play, and Out of Breath Defying, another homebred brother to the $334,000 winner, Something Incredible, or $334,000 winner, who from 3 foals has really produced some young talent. That's Incredible, a winner of $190K, was the first foal. And Beyond Better, Bob, from your barn, 3 for 3 lifetime. Maybe talk about Beyond Better a little bit, and then how does Next Big Thing stack up at this point?
Well, Beyond Better last year, he just was cold sore. We had him down to a couple of vets. You could have injected every joint in his body, but he just needed time to mature. And he's come back great this year. He's in the North American Cup. I don't know if we're dreaming or not, but he's given me no reason not to believe that he's a little special. So, again, time will tell. As far as this called Next Big Thing, Doc will like this. He's a Shadow Play. And he's a big, handsome, good-looking horse like Shadow Play was himself. And he's a pretty damn nice colt. I mean, again, we'll see. I don't like to brag about these things before they do it. But he's trained up there with one of my best ones. So, time will tell.
All righty. Well, we really are looking forward to seeing the first ones from Bob's stable this weekend. We've already had a sneak peek at Ian's group this past weekend. And again, you had a huge night on Saturday night as well, Ian. One more that we just want to touch on, who was a winner last weekend, a Century Pharaoh. He really flew under the radar last year, but as the season wore on, I think he earned more and more respect. So based on that, what do you think you've got in your hands with Century Pharaoh this year in the 4-year-old campaign?
Well, we're hopeful that we have a horse that can compete with the age horse category. As Bob knows, it's quite a move up from 3-year-old to 4-year-old. And a lot of horses I've had that struggled as a 4-year-old, including State Treasure. He was not as good as he got to be at 5, 6, and 7, let's say. But so we're hopeful that he will be able to compete. He's one big tough animal. He's got a little difficult to work with in the paddock, and a couple of things recently, like putting earplugs in him again and hobbles on his hind legs, etc. But when he's on the track, he's all business, and he's good to go. Had a couple of equipment changes this year in terms of the way he steered around the turn, but he seems to have responded well to that. His first race was a very good race. We were very pleased with that. Last week, he just kind of got there at the line, but he was out 3/8 of a mile, and then I didn't train him very tough the week prior, so he does like the hard work, and we're going to try him in the Graduate Series on Sunday in Tioga. I have. I'm going to send him down on Saturday to a good friend of mine down there, John Bo Hallett, and my next friend Wally Huntley is going to be driving on Sunday. So hopefully they'll get along well with him down there because we all have to stay home.
Well, good, good fortune for them. They'll be quite happy to have him, even for just a start or two or whatever the case might be. And big shout out to Bo, regular watcher of our show, and it was great to hear from him recently. And of course, Wally was on the show with us a couple of weeks back as well. So that brings us to the end of the show. But before we wrap it up, let's recap those trivia questions. We'll see how you did. And we've got our poll results to have a look at as well. So we'll bring up the first trivia question right off the top. We wanted to know what was Bob's career best season for both wins and earnings in a single season. It was back in 2002. That was the year that he had a stable that included All-American Ingot, Lady Graceful, Remember When, Please Me Please, Make It Brief. All of them millionaires or very close to it during their career. And what a lot of power that year. And Bob put up career best numbers in 2002 on the way to a career that's seen him win close to 4,500 races and well over 100 million in purse earnings. Our second trivia question, we wanted to know which race did both Shadow Play and State Treasurer win on Hambletonian Day at the Meadowlands. In separate years, both Shadow Play and State Treasurer won this high-profile race on Hambletonian Day, and it was, of course, the U.S. Pacing Championship. And our final trivia question, wanted to know which horse was the last to win an OSS Gold Series leg and then the Breeders' Crown in the very same season. It was Percy Blue Chip back in 2018. And of course, Percy Blue Chip enjoyed a tremendous success in Ian's care as a 2- and 3-year-old as well. So congratulations if you were able to come up with any of those winning answers. Let's check the results of our poll question. And we wanted to know off the top, which of these great pacing mares, in your opinion, was the best that Bob had over the course of his career? And Delinquent Account comes out on top. And Bob certainly had high praise for her earlier on the show. 55% think she was the best of this foursome. LA Delight garners 34%. It's kind of a shame that Electric Slide and Lady Graceful only get 9% and 2% respectively. Great mares in their own right. And again, Bob said many more than these, but these were the 4 that we picked out for our poll question tonight. So thank you for taking part in that. And gentlemen, we want to thank you very much for taking some time to join us tonight. We really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. And I think I could speak for you, Mark. We're tremendously excited to see all of your youngsters back in action again this weekend.
Yeah, we certainly are. And any of this information that you guys have been able to pass along, I think is definitely useful, especially for us going forward watching this weekend. For the fans at home, it gives them something to be more excited about this weekend. We've got a lot of 2-year-olds qualifying at Mohawk Park, 235 this weekend, pretty much split over 3 days, 2 full days, Friday and Saturday. And there's a handful of 2-year-old trot qualifiers tomorrow morning at Mohawk Park. So it's that wonderful time of the year. And I know it's my favorite time of the year. And I know for a lot of our viewers it is as well. So looking forward to it. And to both of you, best of luck with your group this season.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you again. Bob McIntosh, Dr. Ian Moore, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I echo Mark's sentiments. Best of luck to both of you this weekend and, of course, all season long. As Mark mentioned, lots of qualifying action coming up this weekend. There's a complete look at the schedule. We've got 5 qualifiers for the babies on Thursday as part of the full qualifying session, and then a full slate of 2-year-olds on both Friday and Saturday. Start time, all 3 days, 9:30 a.m. And COSA-TV looks forward to providing live coverage of those qualifiers for you, the baby races in particular this weekend. Mark and I will be with you for that. And enjoy the rest of your night. We want to remind you, coming up as well on Sunday night, as always, another hoof bid auction. And it is the new way to sell horses online, hoofbid.com. Find out more. It's available in the App Store and on Google Play. There's the website for you to find out more about hoofbid.com. Thank you again for joining us tonight, and we'll see you this weekend during baby race action. Enjoy the rest of your night, and so long from COSA-TV.
COSA, the Central Ontario Standardbred Association, proudly serving Ontario horse people with integrity and accountability. Collaborative, supportive, helping to ensure a vibrant harness racing industry. Lifetime membership is free and there are many benefits. Become a new member today. COSA, representing the interests of horse people racing at Ontario racetracks. To find out more, visit COSAonline.com.